everyone. Welcome officially to Cabinet Outs, and welcome Premier.
From Nova Scotia Power officials at a committee the other day, I'm wondering what you think about the progress they've made in responding to the cybersecurity breach.
Not impressed, for sure. For Nova Scotia Power to appear before a committee and essentially shrug their shoulders and say, it'll be okay, we're going to take care of it. That's not good enough. We have Nova Scotians paying bills today that they might not have to pay. And you know, at a minimum, we would have expected Nova Scotia Power to kind of explain that to people, maybe put an insert in the bill explaining what's happening, but we've seen none of that from them. So I guess my message to Nova Scotians is we'll have their back on this. We'll make sure that we do what we can to hold Nova Scotia Power to account, and we'll use any measure on that. We've shown that we'll stand up to Nova Scotia Power, and we'll continue to do that.
That look like? Obviously, you can go to the Energy Board, but what other measures are at your disposal right now?
There's any number of measures. We're considering them all.
Ori said he was going to go to caucus yesterday and urge a way to be found to find Nova Scotia Power. What did caucus decide?
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, we're looking at a number of things that could be, you know, asking the board for a fine, asking the regulator for like it could include a number of things. But I would say this is something that is on the minds of Nova Scotians, and it is certainly squarely on my mind.
Is going through the board the only mechanism for a financial penalty for Nova Scotia Power?
No, there's a building across the street. We can pass legislation. We can do all kinds of things.
Would you have to do that quickly, or could you wait till the spring or next fall?
Let's say it's an active file.
Fine is imposed, Premier. Is that something that would be returned to Nova Scotians? Like, what would the purpose be? How would you guarantee that customers don't pay essentially for it?
I think the ratepayers would not pay that fine for sure. Returning it directly to them could be something. There'd be any number of outcomes here, but this is it's a situation that I think in the world we live in today, breaches happen. Like we've seen that. Nova Scotia Power, not the only one to be breached. Happens. But it's how you respond to that, and I don't think their response has shown the level of respect for the ratepayers of this province that it should.
Do you think that African Nova Scotian and Mi'kmaq communities in this province are owed an apology from the provincial government for the province's history of environmental racism?
I think there has been significant examples of racism in this province that Nova Scotians aren't proud of. For sure that has happened. My government, our government is like Nova Scotia. We don't accept it. There's no place for racism in this province, and we stand up to that at every possible opportunity. So I think you're referring to the report. Nice get on the leak. We're going to pass out I don't know if we have it, but we're going to pass out I think the report is in draft. We'll pass that out so everyone can have that. Meeting with the members is the next appropriate step. That was the plan. The fact that somebody leaked the report doesn't change the plan. We'll continue with the process we're on and have a discussion with them about what's the best way forward.
And on a different topic, the Northern Pulp bidding process is happening today. I'm not asking you to tell me anything about how you folks are approaching it, but I just wonder if you could talk a little bit about the factors that the province considered that ultimately led it to decide to get in on the bidding process. Why was it important to the province to be a part of the process?
Sure. So we're in the process for sure, and we put forward a thoughtful, sincere bid, and the reason for that is our traditional industries are incredibly important to our economy across the province. So fishing, farming, forestry, mining, these are all incredibly important parts of our economy, and the forestry sector is really important. And those lands are important to the forestry sector. To have a working forest and forest sector, those lands are incredibly important, and that was what was driving our bid process.
So Macer had already come forward as a stalking horse bidder. That they seem to be a credible landowner. They own a lot of land in New Brunswick. Were you unhappy with them as the bidder, or you're sort of in effect bidding against Macer? Why?
I think it's nothing about that company. It's just that I don't think that bid quantum it wasn't the assessment of the province that bid was gonna run the day.
$100 million isn't.
It didn't seem to beat us.
Are there other potential bidders that you're concerned about? Are you sort of trying to defend the province's interest against others?
No. I mean, we don't know who's bid, but I don't want to speculate on who might have bid.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, I just wanted first, before we move on. I know you wouldn't know all the bidders. You'd have some information now on the lead bid. I presume you can't share that, can you?
No. I can't honestly can't say anything more than the fact that we're in the process and we're serious.
There has been some concern in the industry that the land could be bought to be used as a carbon sink. Are you concerned about that?
I guess what I would say is we value working, productive forestry sector.
The province is successful in its bid and the acreage does come back to the province. What's your plan for managing it? Would it be entirely for industrial forestry or could some be protected? Do you have a plan?
I don't want to put the cart before the horse. There's a bid process that's going on. So
Your election platform included a promise to cap power rates to the Canadian average through some mechanism with the Energy Board. Do you still intend to do that?
yeah, we still intend to do that. But look, the reality is if you look at rate increases that are happening in North America, they are significant. There are incredible energy demands. And there are significant questions about where that supply will come from. This is why we're pushing Wind West. This is why we're talking about the oil and gas that's offshore. This is why we're talking about onshore opportunities we have as well. Why we've approved 17 wind farms. There are significant pressure on ratepayers across North America. We're seeing massive increases in rates. So yes, we'll do that. It could turn out, we don't know, it could turn out that national average could be some number that is kind of unpalatable too, but we'll deal with that. My only message to the ratepayers of Nova Scotia is that we will defend their interests at every opportunity. We will stand up to Nova Scotia Power and protect the ratepayers.
If you're interested in putting a cap on power rate increases and giving your opposition to the current rate application that's before the Energy Board, why haven't you done it yet?
There's an active file. There's lots happening on this file.
Explain the rationale of the PC members of the Natural Resources Committee there on Tuesday voting against having the Department of Energy appear to talk about their role in this overbilling issue?
Well, the province of Nova Scotia doesn't issue the bills to the ratepayers of the province. This is a separate company. It's called Nova Scotia Power. They're responsible. Their executives are the one to answer to that. We wouldn't call people who aren't involved in something before a committee. It just wouldn't be appropriate. I mean, where does that end?
The booze announcement today,
You excited?
I'm trying to avoid the American products. In October, NSLC at that point had said there was no plan to sell it, to just sit on it. So how did you arrive at today's decision? Changed, I guess, is what I'm wondering.
This is an area that's, there are very serious negotiations happening between Canada and the United States. And I'm not at that table. I have great faith in the people who are at that table, but they're dealing with lots of issues at that table. The booze issue turns out is a pretty thorny issue at that table. It matters to a lot of Americans and American companies. So, we've tried to stay in contact with the negotiating team and say, does it matter to you if we sell it? Does it matter if we don't sell it? Do you have a preference? And before now, we've kind of interpreted at least or received the message that it's kind of helpful to have that in the back pocket at that table. And recently things are happening, and so we asked again, and they said, well, you kind of make the best decision for your province. So we've just been trying to be good members of Team Canada on that issue.
The decision to direct the proceeds to feed Nova Scotia. Talk about how that came about, please.
Yeah, it'll be the profit will be distributed amongst a number of organizations. Feed Nova Scotia will be one of them, but other community food bank operations, and there are an incredible amount of them around the province doing really important work for Nova Scotians. So we want to support those organizations across the province, and particularly those that have, maybe outside of, maybe those that have a little tougher time raising money and getting donations. This might be a time where we can kind of step in a little bit more than we can. But so, but the message is that there's no profit to be had for the province of Nova Scotia in selling this at this point in time. This is like we want to get rid of it, and we think Nova Scotians should benefit. And we just looked at where we thought we could do the most good, and that's where it is.
Statement said you didn't want it to go to waste.
Yeah, I think there's always the risk that some of it starts to expire or something. We don't want to risk that.
Any beer? It said that it was mostly wine and spirits. Was there any beer? Doesn't last that long.
I don't know if there was any beer, but certainly the vast majority of beer that would be consumed in Nova Scotia will be sold through the Liquor Corp is produced in Canada.
Moving U.S. alcohol increase local producer sales?
I think so.
Newfoundland and Labrador had no responses in their recent call for bids for offshore oil and gas. What do you think this spells for the call for bids that's open right now for Nova Scotia?
Look, I would start by this. I know and recognize and accept that there are people that hope that our bid process fails. We just know that. We hear from them, we see them, we read about them. I'm not one of them. So what happens in another jurisdiction, we kind of watch that. But the reason that I have spent very few nights in my own bed over almost the last year is because I am completely committed to making sure that the bid process that we have now and in the future has every opportunity to succeed. We are working extremely hard to put Nova Scotia back in the discussion. And let me tell you, this is not easy, because Nova Scotia has taken themselves intentionally out of the discussion for the last 10, 15 years. So we are literally going and looking people in the eye and saying, we have an incredible resource in the offshore of Nova Scotia, and we think you should take a look. And so sorry, I think this is really important, because I think the question is one about the economic security of our province. It goes way beyond just a bit in Newfoundland. This is a question about the economic security and the energy security of Nova Scotia, but also Canada. So when we go around and when I talk to people, executives and that's one benefit of being Premier and Energy Minister, you can get to big decision makers. And when I talk to them about the potential reserves, there's a lot of drilling that has to happen. There's about somewhere in the order of 200 drills have been done in the offshore of Nova Scotia. The offshore of Nova Scotia would be twice the size of the North Sea. It would be almost 2/3 of the size of the Gulf. So 200 drills out there in the offshore of Nova Scotia. In the Gulf, tens of thousands. So this is purely frontier exploration, it would be called in the industry. So when I go and say, here's the potential from all the seismic analysis that's been done, and there's been extensive, I have to give credit to the folks at the department. When previous administrations in this province shut down the energy sector, the very capable, good people at the Department of Energy, they just didn't sit on their hands and twiddle their thumbs. They actually went to work on all kinds of seismic analysis and really understanding what was there. So they've done some incredible work. And when I say to the executives, like, I think you should take a look. We haven't thought about Nova Scotia. I think you should take a look. There's a bid process open. There's a data room there. I think you should come and take a look. And I just try to intrigue them enough to do it. We don't have visibility into exactly who is in the data rooms, unless they come direct to the department. There's one at the regulator, and there's a data room at the department as well. If they come to the department, obviously we know. But my understanding is that the vast majority of the majors that I've met with, we're talking, I don't know how many, 15 or 16, have come and taken a look in the data room. So the interest is absolutely changed. What I've been told, the interest is exponentially higher, 1,000 times higher than it was before. So there's significant interest in the bids. We're also talking about a world where the major companies are looking to kind of restock the shelves, because it was kind of, couldn't really talk about oil and gas for a while in the world, but now people are seeing power rates go through the roof, people are looking and saying, well, what can we do? So I think I'm optimistic. I don't know what people will bid, who will bid, who won't bid, and I haven't was not involved in the Newfoundland bid process whatsoever. I know very little about their resource, their process, but I know a lot about ours, and I'm optimistic, and I would hope that most Nova Scotians would be optimistic, and especially on the I find it interesting on the natural gas part of the equation, because there could be 150 trillion cubic feet of natural gas out there. 150 trillion cubic feet. There could be more oil and gas in the offshore of Nova Scotia than Alberta has left. But think about that for a sec. This is an incredible opportunity. So there may be those who would gleefully celebrate a failed bid process in Nova Scotia, but I don't think any Nova Scotian that cares about the future of this province should be one of them. So we'll continue to work hard on that file, and I'm optimistic about the future.
Did previous governments shut down the industry? You said the previous governments shut it down. Could you clarify what you mean?
Well, let's start with Justin Trudeau.
Provincial government. The Liberals put out successive bids, they just didn't get any takers. So what's
Yeah.
different between what they did and what you're doing now?
I think an understanding and a focus is definitely part of that, but they also shut down the onshore, where there's significant opportunities in onshore. And Nova Scotia Power's generation, their generation structure, 50 or 20% of that will come from natural gas. In Nova Scotia, Nova Scotians pay about $10 for a unit of natural gas. In parts of Alberta and BC, where they actually do their own exploration, it's $2 or $3. So think about for a second what would happen if we were close to the natural gas source instead of bringing it all through the United States like we do today because of terrible policy from previous administrations. In fact, the opposition parties today that are complaining about the power rates are actually the ones who made it so Nova Scotians couldn't supply their own grid at all. It was their own policies that put us in this mess. But we're working incredibly hard on this process, and I'm optimistic. I don't know what'll happen on the bid day. It's a ways out yet, but I'm not focused on what happened in the Newfoundland bid process.
So we're back to NSP for a minute. Are you open to revisiting the talk about a low income power rate as a short-term interim measure to try to help the issues that some of this exploration stuff could down the road also help?
I think you're speaking to the issue of affordability. So we have a $1 billion budget deficit in this province as a result of investments that we've made in affordability, mostly. Over $500 or $600 million of that deficit is because of tax relief. That's actually money that we put back in the hands of all Nova Scotians. Part of the reason for the $1 billion deficit is because we've served over 7 million meals to kids at school. So the issue of affordability is forefront in our minds and everything. So we're always looking at options. You've mentioned one.
I was wondering if that's one that's being considered right now in the context of high power rates and people's struggles.
I would just say in the context of what we've done as a government, if people objectively looked at the investments we've made in Nova Scotians, they would see that we always consider every single affordability opportunity. We'll continue to do so.
This one that you're currently looking at or no?
For
Lindsay,
sure.
did you have a
We're
question
looking
about
at that. I don't know
Douglas?
where it'll land, but we'll assess it. But we have lots of, the Nova Scotia Power file is an active file.
I'm wondering if you can help us understand the differences in your government's approval of the HRM infilling restriction bylaws in the Northwest Arm compared to the amendment approval situation in Dartmouth Cove. What's the differences there?
In fact, there is no difference. What happened on the Arm was that it came to the province at the staff level. The staff satisfied themselves, determined that the federal government was consistent, was on board with it, I guess, or I don't know what the technical term would be. It never was elevated to the minister because the staff were able to satisfy themselves that everything was in order. The difference on this one is not only could the staff not satisfy themselves, the legal advice, we don't know where the federal government stands on this. We've seen them approve the transportation permit, so that's, maybe it's an indication that they don't agree with the bylaw. But on the arm, it was very clear that they did, so it didn't get elevated. In this case, and what we've done now is we've said, okay, show us that you have jurisdiction and show us that the feds are on board. And if they can do that, they'll be fine. And I assume they've done that work, but there's actually no difference in the process whatsoever. But thanks, guys. Have a good day.
Thanks, Premier. All right, we have Minister MacDonald, who will be out shortly.